Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we explore the inner game of writing and inspire you to start, finish, and publish your book. I'm Mark DeVoe, and this week I'm treating you to the best of the Bestseller Experiment. I've delved through and handpicked my favorite shows of the 500 plus that we've done of best-selling authors who have collectively sold over 1 billion books. Who's it going to be this week? Let's run the show. Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a best-selling book and inspire you to start, finish, and publish your book. I am Mark DeVoe.
And I am Mark Stay, and this episode is sponsored by our patrons and academates. Wonderful people, every single one of them. Welcome to the bosom of the BXP team. And this is something we're going to be talking about today, isn't it, Mr. D? Later, a little teaser for our coming subject and topic today is You Are Not Alone.
Absolutely. We're going to be diving deep into what it's really like to be a writer and all the things we never talk about. The isolation, the loneliness, the voices in our head. And we're going to talk about the importance of, a lot of those floating around, and the importance of community as well. So something that we've never, it's weird actually, in 4 years, we've kind of skirted around those things. We've talked about mental health, and we've also talked about the value of great community, but we've never really kind of gone deep. So I'm really looking forward to this episode. So Mr. Stay, you have had, again, another busy week, but that's just a kind of run of the mill for you now, isn't it?
It's become the new normal, which you will never hear me complain. You will never hear me complain, you know, because this is what you dream of. Is I don't do, and the thing is, I don't do anything else. I'm very, very lucky. My kids are grown up. I just sit here and write and do stuff. It's brilliant. This is living the dream. This is it. But yeah, today, fantastic news. So my publisher, Simon & Schuster, got a book coming in February called The Crow Folk, which has the most gorgeous cover art by an amazing chap called Harry Goldhawk, who, if you check out his website, some beautiful designs on there. And Harry has done the most amazing cover art for The Crow Folk. And one of the sales team, a chap called Richard Horton at Simon & Schuster, had a brilliant idea. He went to Coles Booksellers. Now, Coles is an independent bookseller in Oxfordshire, and they specialise in, signed books and fun pre-order ideas. And he suggested, how about if me and Harry sign little A5 prints of the cover art, just 200 of them, and if you pre-order the book from Coles, you get a free print signed by both of us.
That's a brilliant idea.
I mean, it helps to have amazing cover art. And, the thing is as well, when you if you're going to, I don't know, IKEA or whatever, and you don't think anything of spending 30 quid on a print of this or a print of that, So the way I see it, you're getting a gorgeous print signed by the artist, slightly defaced by me, and you get a book thrown in as well.
But also, I think it's a brilliant idea because, I actually have on my wall, in fact, anyone who's joining us, this may be on YouTube. We're experimenting. That's kind of what we do here. Yeah. We're actually recording this for YouTube, and we're putting the podcast with Mark and I's ugly mugs on video.
I've had hair and makeup, and I still look like this.
Did you? I didn't. You see, we just did this. I didn't get my makeup artist in. I didn't know we were going to do this. So I'm looking at right. At least I had a little bit of a shave a few days ago. But anyway, at the back, you can see I've got my artwork of my albums here. And I won't turn around my camera and show over here, but I've got this huge canvas of the front cover of one of the albums I did. And we converted it into artwork. And I think that two things. Firstly, if you're an author and you've written a book and you've spent blood and sweat and tears and years writing that book, do yourself a favour and get yourself a copy of the cover of your book done up on a beautiful canvas and have it displayed somewhere in your writing space so that you can remind yourself of what you've achieved, what you've done. But secondly, what you're talking about, Mark, is using the artwork as part of a promotional way of actually, it's such an important part of the book. And so many writers are focused on just selling the book, selling their words, but think about it's a whole package. So use the artwork. Do what Mark's doing, get these limited edition prints, sign copies of the artwork. It's brilliant. I love it. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And you said that Coles are they special? They kind of like a bit of signed work? Is this kind of a specialty that these guys do?
Looking at the website, they offer a lot of signed stuff for pre-order and what have you. And to be honest, I think a lot of good indies do this. This is why indies, the ones that have survived, are thriving, because they are doing the stuff that Amazon just doesn't do.
Yeah,
they're doing
out, right?
Exactly, they're offering that little bit extra, and very, very happy to support them in this. Such a great idea.
That's great. I love innovation, and I think it's really good. If you've actually, here's a good question for our listeners. If you have done something different or unique with your cover art, or even illustrations in the book, or maybe you've got a map, tell us what you've done with it, because we would love to learn a bit more about the ways in which people are using not just their words, but everything connected with the book. I mean, for example, when we launched Jenny's Very Last Monster book, the way we launched it before it was even available to buy is we had a massive art exhibition, and you could come in and look at the original prints of the art with Jenny's words beside it. And we had over 2 weekends, nearly 1,000 people visit that exhibition. Now that was a fairly decent pre-order weekend as well, because people are in there, they see it, they see a mock-up of the book. So there's so many different ways and innovations. And again, it was all because of the artwork. It would have been a bit boring if it had just been, pictures of the words on a piece of paper. That wouldn't have really been very interesting. So the illustration, any illustration brings art into the opportunities for the book. So fantastic. Well, good luck with that. Let us know how it goes. I'm sure you'll kind of report back. And
yeah.
How's your wrist feeling? All this signing, right? It's like,
well, it's only 200.
Only 200. Listen to you. I used to do 1,000 a day at Comic-Con. But how many did you do? You must have done a lot of Comic-Con when you used to kind of...
Not that many. No? Not as many as I might have led you to believe. But I have been there when our Ian Rankin interview a couple of years ago, the one just before Christmas, that was while he was signing, I think it was 1,000 copies. Oh. And that is when you do have to get the frozen peas out and rest your wrist on it. And that sort of thing.
One benefit, though, of not handwriting books is that at least your wrist is still, mind you, with all the typing, I mean, RSI and stuff. I mean, probably the last thing most authors want to do is sign 1,000 books.
Yeah, I mean, I mix it up, actually. I've just started a new notebook for the third, which is a Woodville book. So, and I'm sort of writing scenes by hand, and I'm really enjoying it, actually. Especially now I'm getting up and it's still dark in the morning, and I work. It's weird. I work by one dim bulb, basically. I don't turn the
Charles
computer
Dickens.
on. Yeah. So, and it's one of those bulbs that takes forever to warm up. Energy-saving bulb. And so, I'm sitting here all wrapped up and jotting away by hand, and it's quite a nice, cozy feeling, actually, rather than whacking on the MacBook and then blam, bright white light and everything. So I kind of warm up to that.
There was a discussion, talking to community, there was discussion in the Academy this week about this question. Somebody asked the question and they said, does anyone else here actually write by hand like I do? And it opened up this whole discussion about actually the value of writing by hand. And one of the points, so here's a big tip. If you've always thought, computer, it's more effective, it's more efficient, listen to this as an idea for writing by hand. When you write by hand, you don't make typos. I mean, I write quickly, and as you know, Mark, reading my emails, I can spell, but I'm very bad at proofreading. and you'd think I'm dyslexic. I can't even say the word. What does that make me? I can't even say the word dyslexic. But when I write, I very rarely misspell. It's from the kind of speed of typing error that we get when we type. So this idea of, are we more proficient when we use a computer, I think is up for grabs, because the other thing is, when you write something by hand, it really is your first draft, and then you're going to type it into the computer as a second draft, and then you find all your typos, and you might even have a stronger second draft writing the first draft and typing the second. And I'm putting that out to debate to the world.
That's basically what I did with the second Woodville book. Is I just went into it in a notebook. This notebook down here. Where is it? Here we go. My Stanley Kubrick.
The Stanley
notebook.
Kubrick Shining. There was a discussion about that as well, about the cover of that. Yeah, the carpet.
I would write, and I'm doing the same thing. Here's the This is a White Cliffs of Dover notebook that I got from the gift shop there, because some of the third book will take place on the White Cliffs of Dover. So I went there
very nice.
Do some research.
Great.
And I'm sort of, writing scenes from the book in a kind of weird little shorthand. It's not finished, but it's also not an outline. It's actually, scenes from the book. I'm giving myself license to jump forward and write bits that I know are going to be in it, and then, come the next pass, I'll start joining those dots together. So it's been really, really good fun. And you're right, it's very freeing.
It's also just being able to read through it and highlight things and draw arrows, and it's all that freehand side of things, right? I think there's a lot of people that don't mention that they still do it because they think they'll be mocked by the new technologists. But I actually think that, a bit like vinyl, I think, handwriting could be making a big comeback. I do fear, though, for our kids' generation that aren't really writing at all. I mean, a lot of the kids at school now are straight on iPads and computers, and they're not even learning. They're learning the art of cursive. I've noticed with my kids, I was thinking, what, did you not have like writing tests anymore and things? It's like, it's really changed a lot, and
This is where it turns into two old men complaining on the internet.
Does,
but I'm the same. My son's handwriting, honestly, we joke about it, and they teach them cursive handwriting, which is illegible. Frankly, just but anyway.
Do you know what season whatever we're on of the podcast? We could rename it the Grumpy Old Men Experiment. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
We're getting to that age, really, aren't we? I remember that show on BBC Two about grumpy old men, and I never thought I would possibly be an audition candidate for that. But anyway, all right, let's move on from the education system we love. And teachers out there, teachers who are out there making this happen and getting kids into writing and reading, we absolutely love you, because you know what? It's such a hugely important part. In fact, even just talking about reading, I read this week that Elon Musk, who we mentioned in our last episode, he's still not confirmed whether he's coming on yet or not, Mark, so I'll keep working on that. But I don't know how we'd get him on in the book world. But apparently he says reading was probably one of the most essential things in his development. He read voraciously as a child, and apparently it's in all his autobiographies. And it just shows you that, how you can expand your mind through just diving into anything, whether it's a story or nonfiction or learning about our world. And it educates our brains, to create people who can think on the level that Elon Musk does and the kind of things he's doing. So,
I gave a talk to Society of Authors group yesterday, and there was some concern that children aren't reading as much as they used to, blah, blah, blah. I said, more children's books are being sold now than at any other time. Children's reading is in very, very good health. And even there are concerns that boys aren't reading enough. They're playing games and what have you. But I mean, my son, he's 18. He's not a child anymore, but he's whizzed his way through Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay. Which he's learned, and a lot of that is text.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of reading in games, and they're reading on discourse and Discord, and they're reading on text messages. Although that's not really proper English.
And he was telling me all the stuff that he's learned about American history and cholera and American presidents, and he can play poker now as well.
It is. I must admit, though, it is as a father of three kids. Two teenagers and one preteen. It does concern me. My eldest was never really into computers much. She has read voraciously. Like she read the all Harry Potter 7 books over one Christmas break in 2 weeks, rereading them. But my other two aren't hugely engaged, but they're very engaged in computers. So just as a sample of 3, I've noticed in my family that the 2 kids into computer games don't read books as much, and my one child not into computer games reads a lot. And I just wonder if that's an experience other parents are seeing out there. Again, very basic experiment, but a survey of one here makes me wonder that. But then I do ask, how much are they reading whilst they're on the computer? And how valuable is that compared to sitting and reading a story from start to finish and getting into characters and depth? And and then the other argument is Netflix. Like, Netflix is great, but it's we can spend so many hours watching it. How many people have switched from reading books every evening to watching the latest binge series?
The opportunity for distraction is there more
That's
than
the
ever,
challenge.
ever,
And I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
And that's not just kids, that's all of us.
That's all. Facebook and absolutely.
I find now if I can read nonfiction in little nibbles very, very easily, but fiction, I need to set aside time for it. And I will be, things like, right, this weekend I'm reading a book.
Right. So it's an event in your life now almost.
It is.
Interesting.
That might be a middle-aged thing, though. I mean, you see posts on social media where people joke about the same kind of experience. Yeah, me at 17 reading a book every other day. Me at 40, I need to set aside a week to read this book. It's
which is pretty good still.
It might be the way my brain functions. The other thing I've started doing though, because I've been waking at 4:30 in the morning, just my brain with everything that's going on.
I have that as well.
I've got David Copperfield on my phone on Apple Books, right?
Right.
So, and it has that dark screen thing. So rather than doom scrolling on Twitter, I'm reading because I saw the film, a brilliant Armando Iannucci adaptation of David Copperfield. It's just fantastic. And great cast, Hugh Laurie, Dev Patel, all sorts of brilliant people in it. I've just been reading the book in tiny little chunks every morning rather than doom scrolling on Twitter.
That's good.
It's great. It's a wonderful way. It almost feels like I've dreamed it, because I'll often fall back asleep. I'll read it, a few paragraphs and then turn it off and go back to sleep. I'll wake up and I've dreamed David Copperfield. And it's the strangest experience. Gosh. It's really sinking in.
But something you said as well, Mark, about waking up ridiculously early in the morning. I have never, ever had that problem until the last 3 to 6 months. I wake up at 5 and I'm...
Could it be something to do with a pandemic and a terrifying election?
I just thought that something had shifted in my circadian rhythm, right? I thought I was literally I've got to this age and I'm just like getting up or waking up earlier. But again, okay, sample of two here, but if you out in podcast land, if this has happened to you in the last 3 to 6 months, let us know, because we're not alone, which is obviously the theme of today's eepisode. But I want to know if it's just me and Mark being complete weird, strange people, or is this happening to everyone? Is everyone not being able to sleep past 5 o'clock?
Let's talk about that, because I think the thing is, a lot of people, I'm very lucky, I've got a full house here, but a lot of people will have spent a great chunk of this year alone. And it's something that we writers like. We like a bit of solitude. We like to shut the door when we're writing. But when we come out, I certainly like to, have some human contact, because it's the thing that feeds our imagination, that human contact, meeting people, having fun, hearing other people's stories, getting to know people, making notes of their little foibles so you can steal them for a book. Absolutely. All of that stuff, And of course, the opportunities for that have been far less this year. So the loneliness we feel as writers is very real, much more so this year.
Here's the challenge for everyone to consider, and we've never really talked about this, but as a writer, by the very nature of what we do, we have to be in isolation when we do it. I mean, unless you're plotting a book like Mark and I mean, that's one of the things that was benefit of us working together, is we had that social aspect. We would plot together. But, the actor, even when we wrote the book, we couldn't write it together. We did our individual parts and we kind of mashed them and melded them together. So for every single writer, it's a given that if you're writing, you're in solitude. You have to be. I mean, you might have people around you like you did on the train, Mark, when you commute to London. But you'd still be within your own, you've got to be in solitude as you're writing, because it's the only way you get your stream of consciousness going and how you start writing. So the challenge now is because of the pandemic, because of lockdown, and because we've all been enforced into this, a lot of people working from home now as well. Now, Mark and I mean, we didn't have to make that adjustment. We were already working from home. I've been working from home for 20 years, but I used to joke with Jen about, she would say, why don't you pop down to the grocery store and pick up some groceries just so you can see some people? Because there were days when I was working on a really big project, long hours, writing music, working on launching something. I could literally go 3 or 4 days because I'm in the house and we had groceries, so I didn't need to leave the house. And there comes a point where you think, this is not healthy. This is not good. Like the fact you go to the grocery store and you go, oh, it's so nice to see some human beings. And I want to know how many people have been experiencing that feeling because of the pandemic, and because we're already writers and we do this isolation anyway by choice. How much is that affecting people out there?
I've caught myself. I've gone whole days where I haven't stepped outside.
Yes.
That's not good. Because I usually have to go out because Claire's working. So at 3:00, I have to give the chickens their afternoon corn. And I'll step outside and it's like, oh, this is the first time I've been outside today. I know, and right? I know we talk about, we like to write with the door closed. I know there are lots of writers out there who actually like to go to a cafe or like to go to a pub and like the buzz of activity and can write with, all of humanity buzzing around them. And I know a lot of, and I would get to a point, maybe once or twice a week, I would, particularly over the summer, I'd be like, I'll stuff this. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go to, there's some lovely cafes around here where I can just sit down and make notes and, I might have my headphones on or whatever, but there will be other people and I could have a cup of tea and a toasted tea cake or something. And it would be nice to shake it up. And of course we're in tier 3 here in Kent, which means all the restaurants are closed and cafes are closed. And, can he go out?
I know, and we're talking now. I mean, let's just document this for the time capsule of this podcast for if you're listening in 50 years from now, because obviously we're in the middle of it right now, and it's quite an important point in history. But we are, I think, 7 months into, maybe longer, 7, 8, 9 months into lockdown now. Our library, which is where I used to go, Mark. I used to go to our library. I love writing in the library because I'm surrounded by all this great literature. And it's quiet, but it's also kind of, there's a little buzz there. And I would take my laptop down to the library, but our library has been shut for 7 months. You can still go and pick a book up at they've got a little door where some bloke sits and you can pick your books up, which is great because at least you can still because I always get books out of the library. But I miss that so much. And so here I am as a dad of 3 kids. I've got the bonkersest, that's not even a word, but crazy household. When I come out of my studio and go into the house, there's Super Mario playing at high volume. There's someone going, Google, turn up 50%. And I'm like, oh, completely, right? Everyone's talking to devices and I've got 4,000 requests coming in because Dad suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It's like, Dad, there's nothing to eat. Who's making dinner tonight? And this, you need to sign this form for school. And it's like, oh, and so I live within a bustling community of wonder. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. And in fact, my daughter is leaving in January to go to campus, and I'm having my first of my 3 fly the nest. And it's really like, it's one of those moments where I'm thinking, oh my God. But here's the thing. I think about all those people who write that maybe don't have family, that maybe their kids have already left home, that never had kids, that have lost a partner, that have been divorced from someone, and they're by themselves. I can't even imagine what that must be like, honestly, like not being able to go out right now and maybe write in that favorite cafe. And so this idea of isolation, it's not just a challenge for writers. I think it can go beyond that as a mental health challenge. But saying that, I do think that writing, as we talked about on our mental health episodes, if you haven't listened to those, by the way, please go back and find them on the website. They're absolutely gold dust.
We'll put links in the show notes.
Yeah. But I think the thing is that writing can also, whilst we're doing it, can be a huge benefit to our well-being. So it's this very weird kind of juxtaposition of something that's helping us because we're working out things on the page. But at the same time, because we're doing it, we're also having increased isolation. But right now, because it's enforced, how are people coping? How is their writing being affected by it? Is it better than ever, or is it they just struggling to get anything decent on the page? So we want to hear from you. We want to get your feedback on this because for me, it brings into the question mark of the importance of community. How important is community right now when we can't have what we're used to having? And what's available out there? And what can we do proactively to build a healthy community around us? I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Mark? Because we've built the community up of the BXP team, and we've now got this incredible community in the Bestseller Academy of writers all living their dreams out. But what's your take on it? I mean, you've had varying aspects of coming from a community of a publishing company, which is very busy, to then the isolation of being at home. What do you get from community?
Well, it's interesting because the podcast, if you go back to first episode, you'll probably twig that I wasn't much of a joiner. You know, the idea of writing groups made me, the idea of sitting in a circle like some, support group, sitting there listening to Eric talking about his memoir about his gangrenous foot or something. It just, the idea of that just sent, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want anything. Oh God.
And Eric, if you're out there, Eric, I hope your foot gets better, by the way.
So the idea of joining a group, I'm a writer, I can do this on my own and blah, blah, sod off the lot of you, Well, I've come around a bit. Because we've created this, just after a few episodes of the podcast, we had regulars. We already had regulars where people making comments and leaving reviews and and getting in touch, and it gave me the warm fuzzies. Something I hadn't really experienced before, and and then we started this Patreon group on Facebook, and that is like no other group, and we'll talk about that more near the end. And then with the academy as well, the coaching sessions, but also the other thing I've done is I've certainly since moving out here as well to Kent, because moving to a new place is always an opportunity to make new friends and fun. And it just so happens Kent seems to have a literary festival every other week out here, and so there was this whole network of writers. So I made an effort to go out and meet people and make new friends and get in touch with them and start offering advice. Because it's one of the things you often hear from writers is, how do I get other people to read my stuff? Well, you have to put yourself out there. You have to say, you know what, I'll read your book if you'll read mine, and we'll give each other constructive feedback. And that works. And that over the last 4 years has built up. And I've now got, a trusted circle of people whose stuff I really enjoy reading. So Eric's memoir about his gangrenous foot actually turns out to be a scintillating read. And so, I've come full circle on that. So, and especially since I was, I left Orion and was made redundant, and this is coming up to 2 years now, 2 years of free. And that first year, boy, oh boy, was that rough. I, scrabbling around for work or what have you.
Yeah.
And, so I now have communities where I can just check in and see how people are. But you do have to put yourself out there. That's the key to it. You have to volunteer yourself and say, do you need something read? Can I look at that for you? Do you need some advice? Or has anyone here got any advice? And, you generally find that people are very willing to give advice. And I've loved it. It's been one of the greatest things. And lockdown has made that more difficult. But weirdly, I've been working on 2 projects with other writers, screenwriting projects, where we've had regular, Zoom catch-ups or Skype catch-ups or FaceTime catch-ups or whatever. And that's great because they're, you're touching base and you're sharing the same kind of story problems or what have you.
Completely. That's what I most enjoyed actually about when we were writing the book together. Our kind of creative sessions where we'd get together and just have an absolute laugh and a half, coming up with crazy ideas for the plot. I must say as well, doing, we've joked about how much work podcasts are, but one of the things I most appreciate and love about us doing this podcast is it's just fun to kind of check in and like catch up with each other, and we get the opportunity to do that with an audience, which is great. Because so everyone listening to this right now, you're part of this community. I must admit, when we first started the podcast, we didn't have in our mind this idea of we're going to build this community. It kind of just happened, didn't it? And it was...
Well, we didn't think anyone would actually listen.
Exactly, right? But then people started to kind of drop us emails and say, oh, I'm really enjoying this and it's really helpful. And so really it's kind of been an evolution of this community growing around the podcast, the community growing around the people supporting this podcast, our patrons, which if you want to become one of those, by the way, bestsellerexperiment.com/support. We really appreciate every one of you. And now this next tier, which is like building a community within the academy, which is very much taking things to a level whereby it's not this idea of being as part, because here's the other thing. There are communities online on say Facebook, where there are 50,000 members. I mean, you may know the kind of groups I'm talking about. And those groups are great. They serve a certain purpose. They might have a certain thing, which is about how many books have you sold? That might be the theme. And it's about like, trying to get your book sales up, which is great. But sometimes you get a bit lost within the huge, there's the huge swell of people there, and you're kind of one tiny voice in a mass. It's like being in Wembley Stadium, trying to you get 2 minutes on stage and then you get booted off and someone else gets a couple of minutes on stage. But within the academy, what we're doing is building a very kind of a compact, small group of like-minded individuals. Now, this is the key about community from what I've seen in terms of running these communities. For you, each individual, it's about not just finding a community, it's about finding the right community for you. Because there's 1,000,001 different writing communities out there, but it's about you finding the right. So if your first ever experience is going to a writing group where there were just a lot of maybe big egos and it was just like a really unpleasant experience, you might leave that thinking, well, writing groups aren't for me. It might just be the wrong mix of people. One thing that we've noticed in the community, for example, in the academy, is that this word like-minded people keeps coming up all the time. It's about this gathering of like-minded minds, of people who are willing to dream big about becoming a bestseller. Mark Hood, one of our regular listeners and also someone in the academy, he said, if you're serious about writing and willing to work hard, it'll reward you immensely, mainly as well because the academy is a vibrant and supportive community of people dedicated to improving their writing. So it's this idea, it's about finding support within the community as well. I mean, have you ever been part of a community, Mark, where it wasn't the right fit for you? Can you ever think back to a group that you felt, I mean, not naming names, we don't want to out groups, but...
Well, yeah, there's one in particular in which I politely, it's like a party where you think, I don't really get why everyone's here. So I'm just going to sneak out the back door. I'm not going to flounce out, but I'm going to. And it was one of those bigger groups where it's all about marketing and advertising and what have you. And it just wasn't for me. But the thing is, if you're looking online and you can't see a group, or just in your local community, if there isn't a writers group, we've always said, start one. Go to your local indie bookshop and say, you know what, do you know any other local writers? And they will, trust me. Or put something online in your local Facebook communities and start a local writers group. Then you set the tone. You set the stall out. You're if there's, we've always said, if there's ever that gap, then fill it yourself, and then you can, you're leading the pack there. So
and actually, it's a really good point, because one thing that we've seen in the academy just in the last month is we've got the main community of all the writers, but now there is a group of children's authors, and they've said we're setting up our own meet. So they get together on Zoom, these authors who write just children fiction, and they read a bit of each other's books, and then they share tips and they share challenges and struggles. So it's also about, there are larger communities, but it's also about finding communities of your writers. And that's something we're going to develop in the academy, is I'd love to, maybe even about a year from now, have almost like genre groups of every genre. Like there's a romance group, a thriller group. We've got the children's group already running. So it's about having a community of people that isn't just showing up and talking about writing. It's maybe specific to the genre or the interest that you have as a writer. And then you're getting people that not just understand what you're doing, but also can empathize with you because they're going through the same struggles.
That's the important thing, isn't it? Again, coming back to the topic of the show, you are not alone. And in these trying times, there will be days where you might despair and you might think, am I the only one going through this? And having someone else out there, even if it's just one, two, a handful of people who can say, yep, I hear you, I've been through this, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That makes all the difference. It really does.
Yeah. So it's just for everyone to think this, we're coming to the end of the calendar year. And if you're going into 2021 and you don't have a community, a writing community, or you're part of a community that isn't working for you, and you know it's not working for you because you're just not really engaging with it, or you've snuck out the back door. That was a great analogy, actually, of the idea of a party. And that's, there is a feel, right?
It was a party where everyone was complaining. This isn't a party at all.
And actually, somebody said, didn't they, on the BXP team just yesterday, didn't they? They said, they just put a post saying, just saying thank you. What was it? Something about thank you for everyone in this group. It's so lovely to have such a non-toxic group, I think were the words, or something like that. This idea that it was actually a supportive group of everyone encouraging, and there wasn't any arguing, disagreeing. And even when people disagree, they're doing it in a really kind of constructive and polite and respectful way.
It was Julian Barr who said, just a small note to say, I appreciate how non-toxic this group is. That's all. Carry on and thank you. And I think Julian had perhaps been spending some time in another group and come away feeling a bit battered.
Right. Yeah. So if you're not part of a community, this is my challenge to you as your writing coach in the moment. I've just appointed myself as your writing coach. Coming up to the end of the year, have a think about what you're going to do to make community a part of your life in 2021. If only to try it out. And if you have tried it out and you've given up, if only to try it out again and convince yourself, as we're telling you now, it is the case that if you find the right community, it's like extended family. And I honestly think, and we did a big webinar recently, actually last week, where we talked about the five foundations of success that you need to write. And one of those foundations was community. It was a big part of it. And if you don't have that, I really do think that it's a huge chunk of what will hold us back as writers. It really is. I think you can't do this alone. I've learned that in every single walk of life, whether it's music. Like I always joke about, it's Ed Sheeran's name on the album cover, but when you open up and read the notes, there's like a thank you to like 100 people. And the other thing about community is you might actually start to discover people that can help you in your writing journey. It might not just be a group of people that you get together once a week and have a social with. You might find individuals who become key, a beta reader who gives you such important feedback that it changes the direction of your story or shows you a massive flaw that you've not seen yourself. A mentor you might find within your community, a writing buddy. I mean, this is the other thing that we're starting to promote now in the Academy is we're getting people to write together, like not write together as in co-writing, but get together to write, once a week. So they have somebody else, another human being at the end of like a Zoom call or something that they say, right, let's start the clock. We'll do an hour. This is my goal. What's your goal? Go. And it's just having that human contact as best you can over online. It's my challenge. And if you know of great communities, and then share them with us as well, for sure.
Absolutely. Do you want some good news stories?
I do want some good news stories. Yes.
Okay, so we put a thing online in our group saying any good news stories. So from the top, Elizabeth Hurley, who writes under the name Eva St. John, she says, I launched book 2, and it's book 2 of her Quantum Curators series. So it's the Quantum Curators and the Enemy Within. And these are really, really good fun. These are really good fun time travel adventure, very smart, real page-turning stuff. So well done on that, Elizabeth. Julian says, The Mandalorian, Season 2, enough said. Oh, and writing is going pretty well. Fadzi Kasambira says, Fadzi 1 nano, and is 2/3 of the way through his next book. He's also been on submission for a week. Now, Fadzi recently signed up with an amazing agent, and his first book is out on submission, and he says, I'm dying from the wait. But Fadzi, it will happen.
Congratulations, Fadzi.
Got everything crossed.
On that note, we should congratulate everyone out there in writing land that completed NaNoWriMo. You guys are bonkers and phenomenal all at the same time, right? If you did it and you got your 50,000. And I would say for everyone that didn't, and for everyone who wanted to do it but didn't have time to do it, and for everyone who's maybe just wanting to start off, then don't forget this. We forgot to mention this earlier, but the 200 word a day challenge. If you don't know what that is, it's basically our challenge to get you to write 200 words a day and be accountable for them by actually coming to our website and posting your word count every single day. The 200 word a day challenge, you can register for it. You'll write over nearly 1,500 words in a week and you'll be hooked. And do what, actually Mark Hood, the chap that we just mentioned, he's written every single day consecutively now for over 300 days and has written nearly 190,000 words, all because of the 200 word a day challenge.
I've been using it this week in a way that I've had a mad week where I've had to be taxi dad first thing in the morning, and I haven't had as much writing time as I normally have in the morning. So, and I had 20 minutes this morning, and I thought, actually, I can do this because I've been telling everyone on on the bloody podcast they could do this. So actually, I sat down Notepad and just jotted down, and I've been getting sort of 400 plus, 500 plus words done in about 20 minutes or so, and it's been fantastic. So it really does work.
That's brilliant.
Really does work. Back to the good news stories. Hayley Coulter, she launched her book Rope Walk a couple of weeks ago. She said, a reviewer of Rope Walk said, it's like Catherine Cookson, but better. So as a huge fan of Cookson growing up, thanks to my gran, that's pretty amazing. Book 2 is off to editors and beta reader and just started book 3. Now, Catherine Cookson, when I was she's kind of fallen out of fashion a bit, but when I was a bookseller, Catherine Cookson was one of those authors. She had an entire shelf. She had a whole shelf to herself. Yeah,
my mum used to read them. I always remember Maeve Binchley and Catherine Cookson were on my mum's bedside table every night growing up in our house.
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Angela Nurse has a weird good news story. She said, I had a rejection where the agent said, I think you're a writer with great potential. I'm sure you've got a brilliant career ahead of you. Not the offer of representation I'd have preferred, but one of my best rejections yet. And that's the thing. Angela's posted that in the group here because she knows everyone here will understand what she means. But if you go and tell, if I was to sort of say to one of my relatives, I got a rejection, but they said I was really good, they'd be going, yeah, but you got a rejection, you know. And whereas everyone in the group's going, that's amazing, well done, great stuff.
Exactly, it's a badge of honor in our community, isn't it?
Absolutely. Mark Hood again, he said good news this week. He said we got a rescue dog who is adorable. Meet Tara, and he's put up a picture of Tara, who is indeed completely adorable. So well done there, Mark. And Jeff White, he said after a bit of a slump in confidence, can I actually write? Is what I'm doing worth the time I'm putting into it? That sort of thing. The editor and author Britt Havide and blogger Hugh Gregg both asked people on Twitter what were their favourite self-published science fiction fantasy books they read this year. And a few people replied saying it was Jeff's book, The Swordsman Lament, and it gave him the boost he needed. So, you know, it's, again,
timely as that. Yeah, well, this is it, right? It's when we will always beat ourselves up, and sometimes it takes someone external to remind us that actually what we're doing is valuable, it counts. And I always say, if your book changes one person's life, it was worth writing. All those hours, one person's life, it was worth writing. And then if it goes beyond that, then wow.
We also had a lovely note from James Sharp on the BXP group. Said, I wanted to share a story of sorts. So good news, I finally caught up with the podcast after starting from episode 1 roughly 2 years ago. James, there is therapy available for people who binge the show in this way. Firstly, James continues, what a wonderful podcast it is. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but gosh darn, it's worth saying again. The work the two Marks put in is really something, and the dedication, drive and kindness really shows through. Keep it coming, James. Keep it coming. Come on. James
warms my heart.
One of the unexpected ways I found the podcast helping me is by putting myself in the place of the interviewees. Now, I do this. I do this in podcasts all the time. It's like, if you ever listen to, I mean, it's that thing of, if you ever listen to Desert Island Discs, you immediately start going, well, what 8 would I choose? You know, I think that's the sign of a good show. James continues, I'll often be rambling along in the nearby forest where I live, listening to the bestseller experiment, and find myself almost drifting off. Sorry about that. I'm fully listening to the podcast, but at the same time, find myself integrating my own writing via proxy. I think about how I might answer the questions posted to authors about my work, or think about how authors' answers and techniques either reflect or challenge my own. Listening to the podcast has become a really useful way of diving deeper into my own character story and work in general, and for that I'm really grateful. Does anyone else have this experience? And he's had a whole bunch of replies from listeners. But yeah, that's brilliant to hear, because that is exactly what I would want people to get from the podcast, to make them, you know, feel inspired and think about the way that they write. And, you know, the reason I'm still doing it is because I do, every time I interview an author, I have exactly the same vibe. I come away, you know, thinking, great, I've learned something new. I can change something. I can shake things up a bit.
Yeah, and we talked about in the webinar about how craft and any learning that we do is a continuous journey all the way through. And we do this podcast because we're learning every day along with you as well. Every time we learn something new, and we can never stop learning and never stop growing through that. And I've got some wins to share we've got a great forum on the Academy, which is where we say to people, you share your wins, tell us everything that's happened, good or big, small, medium, it doesn't matter. Just share your wins. And we encourage people to like share everything. And so here's a little just taster of some of the kind of headlines of things that people are sharing with us. I hit my word count milestone. Liz Green says she's written more words in the last 3 months in the Academy than she's written in the last 3 years. Pippa said she had a triple win. Robin finished her Christmas short. I posted up that we'd actually collectively as an Academy written 1 million words. We banked the words because we bank words in the Academy as well. And 1 million words have been banked just in the Academy alone since September, which is bonkers. That's a way, way higher ratio to what's happening on the 200 word a day public challenge. Darren won an award. Sadie actually pitched an article to the New York Times. Never pitched an article before, went straight to New York Times. Matt published a short story and was interviewed around it. Another one, Robin hit her word count goals. Mark Stay's film was acquired by Warner Brothers. That's one of the wins, little wins there. That was in there. Mark had a short story accepted. There's so many brilliant things that are happening. And again, we don't shout enough about the great things that people are doing. And that's what we want to encourage within a community where it's safe to do that. And it's okay to say, I did this today and I'm really happy about it. It was a really big win for me. And we all celebrate that.
One's just cropped up since we started recording because I'm just checking, the BXP group, and Georgia Economides. This is 20 minutes ago. Georgia Economides, capital letters. First draft completed. I just finished 100,016 words, 2,611 done today. In time for starting my new job tomorrow. My hands are wrecked as I've been working hard to finish before tomorrow, but I'm very happy with the results and looking forward to putting it away for a little bit while I work out how the hell am I going to approach revisions. Also, just want to say thank you to the wonderful Marks for creating the BXP 2020 challenge. Some days even 200 words felt like a hell of a lot, but it definitely helped me keep writing through the strange year, as did the podcast itself and the lovely community it has created. Happy writing all. Now, that is weird.
Perfect. This isn't live, is it? We're not recording this live. No one knows we're talking about this.
To the end of the... she could have said, and those two tossers can buzz off. The podcast itself and the lovely community it's created. Happy writing all. Big congrats, Georgia. That's just fantastic.
That's so good. Absolutely, and nothing like brilliant. A deadline. We're so proud of you, and this is just brilliant. I love it. Oh my god!
And then we had something from Brona McAteer on Twitter, who is @handwritten, which is a great Twitter handle. Brona says, while tidying my desktop, I found 7 stories that materialized to nothing. Feeling disheartened, I listened to the bestseller experiment, talking to Lucy Vine and Kate Seaman, and that was the archive episode that went out this week. And Lucy, if you remember, wrote a best-selling novel in like 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. But Brona says, this motivated me to start something new. Currently 2,408 words and counting. Wish me luck that I finish this one. Brona, good luck. Got everything crossed for you.
Wow, that's brilliant. I'd like to share a win as well, Mark.
Go on, then.
All right, this is from Josh Atkinson, and I want to. Josh has been with us a long time, but we asked people in the Academy to give us some feedback because we want to know how it's going. We want to know if people are enjoying it, what we can improve, and all those things. This is what Josh wrote to us, and this is a celebration of what people are doing in the Academy. Listen to this. If your dream is to write and you have any self-doubt or apprehension, then join the Bestseller Academy. Word count and writing goals aside, it has given me a feeling of fulfillment in my life because I'm working towards something I'm passionate about and feel is my life's calling. Isn't that just the most beautiful thing? I know what we're trying to do here is to inspire and motivate people, but when you get to word century like that, you think there's something much deeper happening here. This is about changing people's lives. And I just want to thank Josh for sending that in firstly, and just everyone else who's stuck with us all these years. I mean, Mark and I, we've had a long old journey of this through ups and downs of all kinds of stuff. But for me personally, just getting that kind of feedback just warms and melts my heart all in once. And for people to actually genuinely kind of tell us how much it's affecting their lives, I think it's great. So I just want to say thank you to everyone out there. Thank you to everyone that sends us feedback. It is our gas in the tank.
No question.
And, we would love to support you in your journey. Come join us at the BXP team. If you can support the podcast, come join us in the academy. Come watch the webinar that we recorded last week. Just go to the academy and watch the webinar replay. Come and join us and make 2021 the best writing year that you've ever had. Because folks, these I don't know about you, but these years for me, Mark, are whizzing by. I honestly cannot believe we are talking a couple of weeks before the end of the year.
Something happens in your 40s. Time really leans on the accelerator. It's vroom. So yeah, make the most of it, folks. But yes,
make it count.
Enough patting ourselves on the back. I've got to prep for an academy coaching session, so I need to get away and do that. But listen, thank you for listening, folks. We hope you found that helpful. You are not alone. Drop us a line if you're not a member of the BXP team or anything else. We read every email. Do drop us a line. Come and find us. We're at Bestseller Experiment on Facebook. Twitter is at Bestseller XP, Instagram at Bestseller XP. If you go to the website bestsellerexperiment.com, there's a contact form there. That's how you can email us as well. Get in touch. We're here we're a shoulder to cry on. We'll pop a cork for you, whatever it is. Drop us a line and we'll be there for you.
Brilliant. Well, listen, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark, for this incredible podcast today. And I would like just to say, as we always do, it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Are you ready to transform your writing and your life? Join the 200-word challenge today. In just 5 days, learn to develop a lifelong writing habit with over 2 hours of free expert coaching and the encouragement of a vibrant community. This program has already changed the lives of thousands of writers like you. No matter how busy you are, this challenge will show you that with just 200 words a day, you can significantly boost your creativity, productivity, mental health, and confidence, propelling you towards the end. For the first time, receive comprehensive coaching and step-by-step guidance, all for free. Transform your writing habit and start your journey to become the writer you've always aspired to be. What are you waiting for? Sign up for free now at 200wordchallenge.com and make writing a part of your daily life for life.
To read Back to Reality, the best-selling novel of the Bestseller Experiment by the two Marks, go to bestsellerexperiment.com/Back to Reality.
And subscribe to this podcast to get loads of extra bonuses. Go to bestsellerexperiment.com/subscribe. What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book? Quitting the day job? Becoming a best-selling author? Since 2016, we've interviewed and studied the advice of over 500 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 1 billion books. And in the Bestseller Academy, we've incorporated powerful and proven strategies for success, inspiring fiction and non-fiction authors just like you to reach new heights and write their best book ever. Ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, coaching, and the most inspiring and exclusive community of like-minded writers? Well, your bestseller dreams are just a click away. Join us today at bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy.